you very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Kritika Saxena and Ashmit is joining in from the Delhi studio. Ashmit, exciting day, but Prime Minister's Mission Shakti and the opposition's remarks to the Mission Shakti clearly dominating headlines. But first, let's talk about the market action.
Well, hi Kritika, we really can't help that this announcement, a big one at that, comes just 15 days ahead of the Lok Sabha election. So yeah, a big ticket announcement, but of course what will be the repercussions, and one of course cannot ignore the fact that India has finally managed to join a very elite power global club. That's of course coming up later, but first let's just take a quick look at how the markets did today. Straight to all the market action of the day. Profit-taking in post-launch session of trades saw the benchmark indices end in the red. The Nifty gave up the 11,500 mark to end close to 0.5% lower. The Sensex followed suit to end 0.25% in the red.
Well, the markets kept their eye out for the announcement by the Prime Minister. So let's talk about that announcement. India has now become the fourth nation to join an elite space power league with its first test of an anti-satellite missile in an operation called Mission Shakti. India's Defence Research Development Organisation, or the DRDO, used an anti-satellite missile to successfully target a live satellite on a low Earth orbit. The other three nations to have achieved this feat are United States, Russia and China. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who announced the details of Mission Shakti, said that the exercise was necessary for regional peace. Take a look.
भारत ने आज अपना नाम अंतरिक्ष महाशक्ति स्पेस पावर के रूप में दर्ज करा दिया है। हमारे वैज्ञानिकों ने अंतरिक्ष में, स्पेस में 300 किलोमीटर दूर LEO लो अर्थ ऑर्बिट में एक लाइव सैटेलाइट को मार गिराया है। सिर्फ 3 मिनट में सफलतापूर्वक यह ऑपरेशन पूरा किया गया है।
Well, India there making headlines with that announcement coming in just post-noon. It has made headlines the world over. But of course, when we speak of the reactions coming in here locally, domestically, the opposition has mocked the Prime Minister for the surprise announcement of the anti-satellite missile. Congress President Rahul Gandhi wished the Prime Minister a happy World Theatre Day. Some opposition leaders accused Prime Minister Modi of violating the Model Code of Conduct. In fact, the Election Commission has formed a committee to examine the issue. Here are some of the comments that came in from some of the opposition leaders on Prime Minister Modi's announcement.
I am very, very proud of DRDO, which is one of India's great institutions founded by Jawaharlal Nehru in 1958. देखिए, आप खुद जानते हैं कि राजनीतिकरण कितना राजनीतिकरण कितने मुद्दों का हो रहा है जो कि नहीं होना चाहिए। आपने खुद देखा है। और मेरे हिसाब से इस चुनाव में जो असली मुद्दे हैं उस पे चर्चा होनी चाहिए। ये मैं बार-बार कह रही हूँ, जहाँ भी जा रही हूँ यही कह रही हूँ।
We are proud of our scientists and this is they have done. What was the need for Modi at the time of election to violate the model code of conduct to take the credit? Is he walked there?
These are the developments that have been done by the Indian scientists which make us all proud. And we have been hailing them for these advances. You have the Agni missile system now. You've done your Chandrayaan probe. You've done in outer space. You've gone into that whole area. And all this has been happening over the years of the achievements of our scientific establishment. Now suddenly during the elections for the Prime Minister to come and start taking credit is just politicizing the achievements of our scientific community for which we are all proud of.
पहली बात तो देश ने बहुत राहत की सांस ली है। 1 घंटे तक प्रधानमंत्री जी टीवी का फुटेज खाते रहे, लोग बैंकों की लाइन में खड़े होने लगे, 2000 की नोट भी बंद नहीं हो जाएगी ऐसी चिंता लोगों के मन में पैदा होने लगी। ये जो उपलब्धि है ये कोई सामान्य उपलब्धि नहीं है। बेहतर ये होता कि डीआरडीओ के चीफ इस परीक्षण की सफलता का अनाउंसमेंट करते, उसकी घोषणा करते, लेकिन जैसा चुनावी मौका है तो हर चीज का फायदा लेना है, हर चीज का श्रेय लेना है।
All right, so what does this mean exactly for our entire space defense system? Shireen Van caught up with the former DRDO chief, Vijay Kumar, who is now a member of the Niti Aayog. He said that ASAT would serve as a deterrent and India would never use the program in aggression. Here is an excerpt of that interview.
For the benefit of all of our viewers, I want you to explain to us the significance of this move. I'm also given to understand that this has been something that India has been working on since 2012 when you were at the DRDO. In fact, I've seen several reports quoting comments from you from 2012 which talk about how we had the building blocks in place to be able to provide for such an eventuality.
Yes, I think you are right. After the launch of Agni 5 and also interception of a ballistic missile in an exo-atmosphere in late 11, based upon the confidence of these two projects, I had made a statement that India has the building blocks for demonstrating the satellite interception. This does not mean that at that point in time we were 100% ready for doing the launch within zero time.
Okay.
What we had done at that time was the theoretical simulation of our performance of various technologies and ensuring that based upon this we will be able to demonstrate a kill, provided we are given a clearance, and we also work on 1 or 2 years of developing the missing links, which were 1 or 2 missing links at that time. So this was presented to the press, to the government and to everybody that India is now ready for taking on an anti-satellite launch program.
So explain to us, Mr. Saraswat, where does this leave India? The Prime Minister talked about how this secures India and secures India's space infrastructure, but there are also international treaties that govern weaponization of space, so to speak. We saw widespread international condemnation of China when it had carried forward an anti-satellite test. Do you believe that the manner in which we have carried out this test will not receive similar treatment?
No, you see, we have to understand the following. As far as the warfare is concerned today, it is having 4 dimensions, not 3 dimensions: land, air and underwater. The 4th dimension, which has emerged with the progressive or intense use of the space assets, is the space warfare. Now, as on today, the utilization of the space objects is being done by all militaries across the globe for navigation, communication, surveillance and many other activities. Besides, of course, large number of civilian activities like disaster management and finding out natural resources and education programs and so on. Now, obviously, in a war-like situation, there is a possibility that one could have if a country is put back to the wall, can take steps to play with your space assets, and that can lead to a very serious situation. And what should be our answer in that situation? For that, ASAT is the answer, and that is what we have achieved today as a deterrence. Like we have the nuclear warheads, which we will never use unless provoked to the extent that our back is on the wall. This will never happen, and that's what we have done today by having ASAT. We will never use it, but it is a deterrence which will keep the enemy away from taking a step against our space objects.
Right, so Dr. Saraswat there clarifying that this will be a no first use policy instrument, that this will not be used for aggression, but only for means of deterrence. That's, of course, the big story of the day. But let's shift focus with that now. The government is staring at a revenue shortfall of almost 60,000 crore rupees this fiscal. It remains hopeful that the tax kitty, both direct and indirect, in March may add some solace. But that's not all. It is also planning a two-pronged strategy of dipping into its savings, 1, and 2 on public account funds to help meet the deficit aim of 3.4%. Timsy Jaipuri and Sapna Das are with us for sharing more perspective. Timsy, coming to you first, how is the government planning to bridge this gap? It's a big one, 60,000 crore rupees, and meet its revenue deficit target.
Well, that's right. What we understand from sources that fresh concerns have emerged when it comes to the current revenue position on direct taxes. What we understand as of March 25th, the collections are at about 10.23 lakh crore rupees. Remember, the target there to be met is about 12 lakh crore rupees, which was the revised estimate. Similarly, on the indirect taxes side, the target is at about 9.5 lakh crore rupees, out of which 5.45 is around the GST number that government feels. And when it comes to March collections, government feels that 1 lakh crore rupee will just be met, and government is quite hopeful considering that March is the highest yielding month in the entire fiscal. However, right now they feel that there is a consumption slowdown, which is actually leading to low growth in collections. But revenue mobilization spree is on. At North Block, both the Finance Minister and Revenue Secretary are taking an update on collections almost twice a day. Similarly, Ajay Bhushan Pandey, Revenue Secretary, has approached all the banks, both private sector and public sector, to try and credit the TDS in advance for the March quarter before 31st of March, so that that can be accounted in the direct tax kitty. Let's see what happens finally, whether this target is met or not. But right now it looks very tough. However, government is hopeful, keeping in mind that tax collections happen only in the last few days, which are yet to come. Let's see what happens finally on 31st March, whether the target is met or not. Back to you.
Right, Timsy, thanks a lot for that. But even with a 60,000 crore rupee tax revenue shortfall, the government seems quite confident of meeting its fiscal deficit targets of 3.4%. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the centre might dip into its savings and public account funds to help meet the deficit aim. Sapna Das is joining us with more details. Sapna, what else are you picking up?
Well, we've also been given to understand that probably the revenue gap numbers may get scrunched down to around 60,000 crore odd level by around March 31. According to government officials, this is a number that is quite manageable. No major concern on the fiscal deficit front as of now. Having said that, however, the revenue gap is something that the government is clearly estimating in terms of your taxes, basically. So, two-pronged strategy here: A, national savings coming in from the expenditure budget. Second, government may have the option or will have the option of using the public accounts, funds lying in the public accounts if required. Quickly on the expenditure side, every year there are some national savings. This year also may not be too different. 1.5 to 2% of the expenditure budget, which is around 24.57 lakh crores, may remain unspent. So that's a significant number that we may be looking at, and quite a big fiscal relief to the government it may provide. Second, of course, public accounts. You have the National Small Savings Fund and the compensation cess kitty. At the time of the budget also, the government had indicated they're taking around 29,000 crores from the compensation cess kitty, the unused money to be divided between the centre and the states 50-50. They may step up this estimate. The second, of course, some kind of borrowings if required to meet some public expenditure from the National Small Savings Fund, which is not a part of your fiscal deficit calculation. As of now, government is clear on 3.4%, 3.4, maybe 3.4112%, but on paper, of course, it will be 3.4 end of the financial year. That's what we understand right now.
Okay, so the government has a clear-cut plan as far as bridging that fiscal deficit gap is concerned. Thanks, Timsy and Sapna, for joining in with that. Now, top companies such as M&M and Dabur have warned of a potential slowdown in revenue, especially in the rural areas. On the other hand, though, Procter & Gamble has said all is well and it remains bullish on India. Priya Shea joins in now with more details of what various consumer companies are expecting going forward with respect to the consumer sentiment. Priya, take it away.
Well, over the last few weeks, we have seen several companies raise the red flag on demand and rural demand in particular. Today, auto major M&M said that it expects tractor sales to slow down this year and drew a direct link to the slackening of demand to low agriculture output.
So right now, I think in the short term, one key driver of why demand is low is the agri prices, the agri output prices. The second, of course, was that the Rabi crop was not as good as people expected. And that's really what led to the slowdown in the Rabi strongholds post the festival season or through the festival season.
And it's not just auto companies. White good makers like Symphony and V-Guard are also worried. Symphony, which primarily makes air coolers, did not mince its words. It said consumer demand is pretty bad and also admitted that its margins will be impacted this year. V-Guard, which also makes air coolers and stabilizers, said demand environment is weak and their revenue growth could be below guided levels.
So obviously the demand environment is weak in the country. So we are lagging by almost 3 to 4% from what we would like to be as far as growth in revenues is concerned. There is some slowness in the market. So some companies are delaying price hikes. So we are also not able to take the same. Having said that, off late, maybe end of during the month of Feb, we have taken some price increases.
Well, FMCG companies seem to be divided on the issue of demand. Now, Dabur believes that there is a slowdown largely due to rural distress. The company also pointed at prolonged winters as one of the potential reasons for the subdued demand.
Well, there is a slackening of demand, there's no doubt about that, and that's both in rural and urban. It's a consequence, obviously, of tight liquidity, agrarian distress and joblessness. But we do hope that this is a temporary phenomena. I think the stimulus which was promised by the government has not yet flown in, but it will over the next few weeks.
Well, Dabur is concerned, but Procter & Gamble is not. The India head of P&G told CNBC-TV18 that the company is very bullish on India. In fact, he claimed that growth in the second half of the last year was in double digits, and he does not expect this pace of growth to change drastically.
Top line has been 15% plus, and volume has been strong double digit as well. So far we are seeing continued strong bullish growth on volume. We don't expect the growth rates to change dramatically. I mean, there are many theories of what could be the positives and negatives that could happen leading up to the election.
Well, Jet Airways might be looking at a new pilot soon. Arun Kumar Puwar, the former chairman of State Bank of India, may be brought in to steer the airline, but his appointment will be subject to Jet Board's approval. As a part of the airline's resolution plan, the lenders consortium led by SBI will have 2 nominees on the board. The second one most likely from IDBI Bank, ICICI Bank or Yes Bank. But that's not all. That's, of course, with respect to Jet Airways. The other man who was making news last evening was, of course, Vijay Mallya with his comments on Twitter from London. But he's in news once again. Kritika, what else are you picking up?
Well, absolutely. This time around, his recovery or his assets are in news. So this really comes as a major step towards recovery of Vijay Mallya dues. A consortium of banks by SBI has recovered over 1,000 crore rupees by selling Vijay Mallya's UBHL shares. Now, remember, the Enforcement Directorate had attached these shares as a part of its money laundering probe against Mallya. And this is something that had been planned for a long time now. But shifting focus as the debate rages on over the Congress's promise of minimum income guarantee of 72,000 rupees per poor family, former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has called the scheme a moral duty. Addressing media in Chennai today, the former FM also said that India had the capacity to introduce the scheme. He also said that minimum income guarantee may cost up to 1.8% of India's GDP. Listen in.
The government of India and the states should provide an income support of rupees 6,000 per month to each of the 5 crore families. This is a standard amount which will be given to every family. After design and testing, we will roll it out, and it will be fully rolled out. See, we are calculating as a percentage of GDP. At any given time, it will not cross it will not cross 2% of GDP. In fact, our calculations show at any given time it will be only about 1.8% of GDP.
Well, staying with the Congress's minimum income guarantee promise, Lata Venkatesh caught up with Praveen Chakraborty, chairman of the Data Analytics Department of the Congress Party, to discuss the fine print of the proposal. Here's an excerpt of that conversation.
Give us the details. There was still a little bit of confusion about whether the party is talking about 6,000 rupees per month per poor family, or is it dependent on how much that family is already earning and you want to just bring them up to 12,000. So it could be 5,000 for somebody, 4,000 for somebody. What exactly is the math you have in mind?
Sure. It's actually fairly simple, Lata. The poorest 20% of all Indian families or households will get the same uniform amount of 6,000 rupees a month or 72,000 rupees a year.
Okay, fine, fair
and
enough.
That is 5 crore families that will get 6,000 rupees a month, 72,000 rupees a year. Okay. I'm happy to explain to you what you are implicitly referring to in terms of a minimum income.
Yes.
That is actually an inference. So if 5 crore poorest families in India get 6,000 rupees a month, by today's data standards, the average income of the poorest 20% of households is 6,000 rupees a month.
Okay.
You then they get 6,000 rupees more. And hence the inference or the imputed minimum income becomes 12,000. But that is just an outcome of the scheme. It is not the desired goal or the objective of the scheme.
Okay. Well, now let me come to the implications for the budgets. It's 3.6 lakh crore if I just multiply 5 crore with 72,000 rupees. And that would work out very close to 2% of GDP. Now, that's a tall ask, isn't it? Therefore, will it come at the expense of some existing subsidies?
We believe that for a scheme like this, we do have both the economic, the fiscal, and the state capacity to be able to launch a scheme like this today. Okay. I admit we would not, perhaps India was not ready for this even 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Okay.
Today, we are at 200 lakh crore economy, nominal GDP growing certainly 15%, 16%, whatever it may be. All right? We
10%, Praveen, 10%.
60 lakh crores today.
My point is, therefore, will some of these schemes be subsumed? I thought Mr. Chidambaram said that schemes which don't have a specific social subsidies, which don't have a specific social intent, could be subsumed under this.
There are, back then in 2017, there were roughly 950 centrally sponsored schemes. 11 of them are the big, important schemes that cost as much as the remaining 939 of them.
Okay.
So, there is, when we say that we will look at the expenditure side, scheme by scheme, carefully, we do believe, and obviously when I say this, we have done a little bit of work here, we have looked at it, and we do believe that there is opportunity to rationalize some of the 939.
Okay. All right.
And with tax revenues in place, we can easily fund it.
Okay. We are running a show with commercial breaks, so I'm trying to squeeze in a little more in terms of time. The economists, some whom the Congress party consulted, like Lucas Chancel and Abhijit Banerjee, were speaking with us on the channel yesterday. Both of them said that the super rich to be taxed. Will that be part of this plan?
It's a little kind of premature for us to start talking about. I mean, you're basically asking us for what the budget would be. When I'm saying this is an idea,
I'm asking the broad. Praveen. I'm not asking you up to a decimal point or even a round figure. I'm only asking you the principle of it. They said the super rich, the highest 1%, should be taxed more. Common to both Abhijit Banerjee and Lucas Chancel. Is that in principle accepted?
See, Lata, there are arguments on either side. On one side, there is a clamor for increased taxes on the super rich or the wealthy or whatever you may call. On the other hand, there is a clamor from, I think, your fraternity about what you think are dole and wasteful subsidies, such as food subsidy and fertilizer subsidy. I don't think either extremes are the only way to resolve this. We have looked at this in detail, and like I said, I think we are fairly confident that we will be able to find the money to do this, because I do believe everyone is underestimating the tax buoyancy revenues as well as the ability to monetize some assets.
Meanwhile, BSP Supremo Mayawati has said that she concurs with the BJP in calling Congress Party's Nyay scheme proposal an election bluff, likening the Congress Party to the BJP. Mayawati tweeted, and I'm quoting now, "Both parties are birds of the same feather in betraying the interests of the poor, labourers, farmers and others." End of quote. Time now for our special series, Election Trending, where we put together all the election action that unfolds on social media through the day. Kevin Lee, as always, is here with today's top trends. Kevin, take it away.
Tonight on Election Trending, Prime Minister Modi is the star of the day after making an announcement that's quite literally out of this world. And while a galaxy of BJP leaders take to Twitter to congratulate him, the opposition and meme makers ensure that the ruling party doesn't have its head in the clouds with a set of supersonic responses. Let's blast off. The Prime Minister started a social media frenzy today after tweeting that he would be making an important announcement this morning, and Twitter was abuzz with speculation about the nature of the announcement, with guesses ranging from Nirav Modi's extradition and proof of the Balakot airstrikes to a second round of demonetization. When the PM finally spoke, however, it blasted those guesses out of orbit. The announcement was about the successful test of an anti-satellite missile, making India only the 4th space superpower in the world. When the dust settled, all 10 of India's top trends were about the announcement, a clean sweep of the trend charts for the first time this election season. Congress President Rahul Gandhi tweeted congratulating the DRDO and wishing the Prime Minister a happy World Theatre Day. Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav accused the Prime Minister of diverting the nation's attention from key issues on ground and quite literally pointing to the sky. Senior lawyer Prashant Bhushan pointed out that the DRDO had developed these capabilities in 2012, but BJP supporters were quick to rebut, saying that the UPA government had not cleared a test, hence delaying the process. But my favorite tweet of the day was this meme that summed up this series of events while referencing a controversial IPL moment. All in all, a day full of interstellar excitement, but for now, we're hoping that the action returns closer home as we near the first day of polls.
Well, the trigger-happy world of social media generating some interesting content, and Kevin there bringing out the best of that. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night.